all of your Viva, it consists of various questions. Few questions are asked to see that whether you have uh, you have read the topic. So simple questions. Few questions are asked to see that whether you have think something on the topic, and you can answer. And very few questions are tricky, so you have to really think and then answer. So whenever this is the thumb rule, whenever anybody asks to define something, you don't use the same word. So when I said that define static characteristics, you said that the characteristics when input is not varying. So if you say characteristics is input is not varying, it is very difficult because I want to know the characteristics only. Rather, you could say that the performance of the instrument when input is not varying. That will make sense. But if you say the characteristics, to define characteristics, it is not proper. Calibration process, 50% of the student answered, 50% of the student could not answer. It is, I already wrote it in slide and tell different times that it is comparison of your instrument with higher standard of instrument. And when you compare whatever higher standard is saying, you believe that and correct your scale of your instrument. That is the calibration. So, but this procedure, um, half of you could not understand or could not tell. Now, if I come drift, last day I asked. So drift, most of you could not say. I don't know why. It is very simple. Drift means what? What is drifting? Changing or shifting. Drift means shift. But what is shifting? Your calibration curve is shifting. So that you could not tell. You are telling that some always some bias measurement you will get. Okay, always some different measurement you will get. Those type of things you are telling. It is not correct. When a drift is there, that means shifting. And shifting, what is shifting? Calibration curve is shifting. That means input output relationship is shifting. Now, if I come to dynamic characteristics, um, so basically, what suppose I ask that I give a transfer function of the instrument, and then can you determine the steady state error? So, two way it can be. Suppose I gave a transfer function. I tell that this is your input. What will be the steady state error? So, what you can do, the input, if it is in Laplace domain, you can transfer it to time domain. That would be your time domain input. And then output, you can take Laplace inverse and you can get the time domain output. You can subtract both of them, and then you can uh, do limit t tends to infinity, and then whatever you will reach, that will be your steady state error. Now if sometimes what happen, it in time domain calculation becomes very complicated. So if time domains calculation becomes very complicated, so you can do it on frequency domain. How you can do frequency domain? You know the transfer function of the input, that is your input. You know the output from the frequency domain. That means you multiply the transfer function with the input, that will be the output. So you subtract that output and input, you will get the error. And then you know that the uh, t tends to infinity means that the t tends to infinity et means that s es while s tends to 0, and it is very easy. Now you calculate s es and then do limit s tends to 0. Whatever you will get, that will be your steady state error. Okay, so this thing you have to see. um, Most of you could not do it. I mean, none of you could approach in this way. Then I ask about the random error, which most of you could not answer. So it is also very simple. Random error means what? So few things we take care, that if this input is coming, if we taking the instrument to different gravity, this, that, what will be the variation, and we take care the variation. But it has been found that the experimental results shows very random fluctuation. That means sometimes it will become positive error, sometimes it will become negative error. And even it is present if all the environmental error is taken care, is all the systematic error is taken care, then it will not Okay, I was disconnected. Now let's start. So collecting all those things together comes as a random error. Okay, so next question I was how you can model the random error. So I don't know why none of you could answer it, because almost one class I discussed about it, although I did not write anything in slide, but I discussed about it that you have to model it. Model, first thing is few students ask what is the meaning of model. Model means mathematically express the random error. So to model, you cannot express mathematically with some deterministic equation or something. So you have to model this random error with the help of statistics. Mostly you can tell that these the random errors which are coming, it follows some probability distribution function. It might be Gaussian in many cases, and in other cases it might not be Gaussian. But this you can model it with the help of probability density function. I discuss it lot, almost one full class. I don't know, so none of you could answer it. So I discuss it also. Suppose you have some true value and you have some. So true value is measured with some gold standard or with some higher accuracy instrument, and now your instrument you are measuring that value, and whatever the error is coming, you if that may be the error. So if you want to model that, you repeatedly take that different input readings with the help of good instrument and with your instrument, and then you will get a series of number, and that number you can fit a different probability distribution function, may it be Gaussian or it may it be other, and you can test that goodness of fit. When you are satisfied that your fit is proper, you can tell that this random error is following this probability distribution function, and that is the way you can model it. Once you model it, we can proceed to random signal processing, so that this random error can be minimized and we get the more accurate signal, more accurate output. So this is what I discussed in lot detail, but I don't know, none of you could answer. Now, in dynamic characteristics, another thing I asked that do you need the transfer function of an instrument to know in order to know the input? So all of you said yes, but when I said that if you measure the thermometer, you never ask for the transfer function, still you can see the output, and you can see the output and you can measure the temperature. So what's the problem? Then I think most of the students, not most, all of the students could not answer it, whomever I asked. So you see one thing you are missing, always you are assuming that your input will be static. That means it is not changing with time. So if you have static input, say step input, so you wait for some time, your measurement will reach the steady state, you take the steady state reading, so that output will be equal to the input. But one thing you are forgetting, suppose your input is varying with time, then if the input is varying with time, your output is also varying with time, it will never be in steady state. Now at some point of time, let's say t equals to t0, you take the output, you get some value, that means say that 90 degree centigrade, but that will be the input? No, because if you give the input, you have to wait so that the transfer function, step input transfer function transfer function goes to the transient and reach the steady state. So as input is changing, it will never reach the steady state, and whatever output you will get, it will never be equals to the input. So that output you have to process with the transfer function so that you can know the instantaneous input. Okay, so that aspect none of you could answer. Okay, now tell me if you have any query. Lot of thing I spoke. Okay, fine. So these are the all question I ask, and then if I go to the PMMC instrument, so all of you read PMMC instrument, and then I asked that whether it can measure DC. You said yes. I asked that whether it can measure AC. You said no. So I asked what will happen. You said the pointer will oscillate and it will remain. Some of you say that pointer will oscillate, and then I ask if it is oscillate, it is fine. So you can read the peak oscillation. And some of you say that it will be on zero, but apart from if you could not explain the why it will be zero. So you see that the pointer is a mechanical. Now I'm trying to explain this. I explained in class also. You may be overlooked. This is written in slide also. So see, as the pointer is made up of, it is not electrical thing. It's made up of mechanical thing. So if you try to move a mechanical thing very frequently or try to oscillate it, so what will happen? This mechanical has the inertia. So once you start uh, moving, the mechanical part cannot move immediately. Once you stop or go opposite direction, mechanical part cannot do it up immediately. So as the pointer is mechanical part and it has inertia, that is the main reason. It has inertia. Due to inertia, it cannot flow this fluctuation of positive and negative path. So it will show the average. So, and for AC, the average is zero. So the pointer will be at zero. Now I ask that whether if I apply some sawtooth wave, I don't know why you people don't know the sawtooth wave. Sawtooth wave is very popular. It's kind of rectangular wave, but there is no falling terms. Falling will be happening straight line. Okay, so with ramp it will rise, it will fall straight line, then again it will rise. That is sawtooth wave. Okay, whatever it may be. I asked the square wave. You don't know duty cycle, so I say that you duty cycle, you don't know duty cycle. That is also very surprising to me. So at this point, all of the students usually know the duty cycle. Duty cycle means that the square wave on and off ratio. If the on time is same as off time, the duty cycle will be 50%. Okay, if on time is more than the off time, the duty cycle is more than 50%. So that is the case. So anyway, so if square wave is applied to the PMC instrument, what will happen? So basically, theta is proportional to I. If the changing thing happens, then the inertia cannot follow the change. So what will happen? The inertia will give you the average. So you have to calculate the average. That means 0 to t, this waveform dt, and from the average, whatever average you will get, the scale will read, the pointer will show that value. So it will be there and it will little bit vibrate around that. So that is all. So none of you could tell this. So, and another simple question I asked that whether this PMMC instrument can take high current or not. Most of you said no, it cannot take. But why? The reason you said that it will deflect and it deflection will be more, and then nothing will happen. But the point is that if you send high current, the PMMC instrument has a very thin wires, and if high current pass through the thin wire, that wire will get burned because of I square R loss. That you people did not mention. So that is the reason. Now another question was that whether the wires are insulated or not. Some of you said that it is insulated. Some of you said that it is not insulated, and you could not give the proper reason. See, if wires are not insulated, then the whole wire will constitute a single wire. There is no meaning of the term A. So if there is no meaning of the turn n, so it will be single turn, and with single turn you will not get much deflection. Okay? So you have to have multiple turn, and you have to utilize the space as the multiple turn you have to make. So, and you have to see that two wires are not touching each other. So that you can make with the help of insulating wires only. So wires should be insulated. So these are the all question I asked. Okay. So if you have anything want to ask, you please speak. Whatever I remember, what are the question I ask, I try to answer. And Madhur Jain is saying, sir, can you please share your mid-sem Viva marks so that we can know how we have performed and also learn from our mistake? Yes, mid-sem Viva marks can be shared, but I don't want to see that everybody's marks, everybody can see. So I can share individually. That means students to student. I guess are getting what marks. Okay. Okay, so mid-sem marks I can disclose, I can tell individually, not to all the students, because some of you get really bad marks and others should not see. So individually I can say there is no issue. Okay, so now tell me if you have any other query about the mid-sem, or if you have any other question. Some of you asked, sir, what will be the answer? So I said answer I will tell later, because now all of you know the question, and because one I asked the question, you are telling everybody. Although I said that you don't tell anybody that what question I am asking, but I don't think that you people are integrated so much or will listen to my word. So I know that you people are telling everybody what are the questions are asked. And if I tell the solution also, then you tell the solution. So now only question bank you have, but if I keep on telling the solution or the answer, you both have question answer bank. So that's why I did not tell. I tell that after the Viva, I will tell the answer to everything. So now tell me if you need to know any answer of any question, or if you have any doubt, or if you have any query which you want to know. Please tell me. Even you no need to write on chat. You can just speak. That is also good. No query?
Sir, how will the poles of a second order equation vary? The
Oh,
trans
whole second order equation for with
Yes.
zeta.
Yes, sir.
Okay, when zeta will be 0, you see these are things are written in any control book, Ogata or whatever. So when zeta is 0, where will be the pole? The pole will be on the imaginary axis, complex conjugate pole, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
when zeta will be 1, there will be no complex conjugate pole. Both the poles will be at the same position, and which is on the negative real axis. Now, as zeta changes from 0 to 1, the pole will follow a circular motion, circular trajectory, and from the uh, j omega axis to it will reach to the real axis. And if you increase the zeta value more, the pole will separate, and one pole will come near the zero of real axis, another pole will go away from the zero of the real axis. Okay. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anybody wants to ask anything?
Sir,
Yes.
so you asked me that how if in PMMC we took the AC current, why can't it measure it?
Yes.
I said the deflection one. So what was the exact explanation? You said ki I'm not giving the correct one.
Yes, but you did not mention that the pointer is a mechanical component and it has inertia. All mechanical component has inertia. Electrical wave can fluctuate with 50 hertz or whatever, up and down, positive and negative, right? But mechanical component cannot follow that waveform as it has inertia. So you did not mention the inertia. Okay. So as it cannot, yeah, as it cannot follow the electrical quick fluctuation, and due to inertia, what will happen? It will follow the average value. So if the AC current you mean that oscillate sinusoidal and with zero mean, then it will vibrate around the zero because the mean is zero due to the inertia of the mechanical part, which is pointer and the former.
Okay, sir.
Other student, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. Okay. But what happened? Akanksha, she asked something and then she vanished. Okay, anyway. Anybody has any other query?
Sir, what is sensor noise, sir? Sensor noise.
Oh, sensor noise. Okay. Suppose you are measuring suppose you brought one sensor to your lab, okay, and you started measuring the input. So you will realize that sensor will never give the exact value of the input, okay. Rather, it will give sometimes exact value plus delta A, sometimes exact value minus delta A, right? Whatever the accuracy you make, whatever the precaution you take. If you take more precaution, maybe plus delta A minus delta A will be less, but still it will be. Exact value sensor will never give. Okay. So all those deviations from the exact value, that is called the sensor noise. And sensor noise is very important for engineers because as you will not get any sensor without noise. So the main challenge for any engineer will be to minimize the sensor noise or to process the output of a sensor in such a way that you can minimize the sensor noise. Okay. So all those signal processing, everything that is required for this reason only. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Sir, you also asked me that why we use the transient conditions in the dynamic characteristics. What is the use of it? So
Yeah, in measuring input. That's what I
yes,
answer, na, that if input varies, then output will not stabilize any point. So from seeing the output, you cannot tell what input is because input is varying and it might be giving some value which for the input which is t minus delta t, not exactly at that time, right? Because it is related with the differential equation. So you need to know transfer function or differential equation to solve and to get the input value from the output measured value as input is time varying. Is that fine? I told it earlier also, but now did you understand?
yes, sir, got.
So whenever you prepare for exam or you read something, don't just think that if this question is asked, what will be the answer or what I will give the answer. You try to convince yourself with the answer. Once you convince yourself, you can convince anybody in the earth. So it is not just merely this question is asked and this sentence I have to say. It is not like that. So you try to convince yourself so that teachers can also be convinced. Okay. Okay. Now tell me if you have any other query.
No, sir.
Okay. Fine. So then we can proceed our.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, what will be the deflection when we give rectangular response in moving coil? Moving iron.
Moving first,
Moving iron.
PMMC or moving iron.
Moving iron, sir.
Okay, moving iron, you see that theta is proportional to I square. So if the current is DC, I is constant, there is no problem. You will get theta will be equals to some constant square, right? But when the current is not constant, it is varying, either sinusoidal or triangular or sawtooth or square wave or whatever may be. Okay, then what will happen to the output? So it will also be the I square. So I square is it is instantaneous I square, but due to the moment, due to the inertia of the mechanical part, it cannot follow exactly the I square with the time. Rather, it will follow the average value. So you average it, and the I square average value you do, it will come to RMS. So even if you give the triangular wave, it has the RMS value, and the output pointer will show the RMS value. Is it making sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, in class I show you that how the RMS value will be calculated, and see that is the I square dt and all. And the same thing, I square dt will be, but that I will be replaced not with the sine wave, rather than it will be replaced the expression of a triangular wave. And when you replace the expression of a triangular wave, you will get RMS value, okay, or mean square value of the triangular wave, because you are doing the 1 by t 0 to t I square dt. So you can calibrate the scale with the either the mean square value, or more preferred thing, we use root mean square value. So it will give the root mean square value, whatever be the waveform. Okay.
Sir, I have also said you that, sir, it will be mean, but you said that this is wrong.
No, you have to, you might not be telling the reason. The reason is the inertia, and that you don't tell or you don't realize. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Inertia is the main culprit, and that you have to realize. Hmm. Okay, fine. Anything you want to ask? Okay, so if there is no question, let's return to our regular class. So another thing is that tomorrow 8 to 10, are you people free? Sorry, 9 to 11. 8 to 10 will be too early. Tomorrow 9 to 11. So tomorrow 9 to 11 we'll do class. Okay, so let me write it. Tomorrow 9 to 11 a.m. Yes, so tomorrow 9 to 11 there will be class. So now let me share my screen. So if you have any query, you can ask. There is no issue. But I am trying to share my screen. Okay, probably you can see the screen. So now what we are reading? We are reading the measurement of high resistance. or measurement of resistance, and there we divide it into various parts: measurement of medium resistance, measurement of low resistance, measurement of high resistance. So among that, measurement of medium resistance and low resistance we have read. Now we are reading measurement of high resistance. So I said that measurement of high resistance, there are three methods. Among the three methods, one method is loss of charge method for measuring the high resistance. Okay, let's see how it is. So suppose you have a capacitor, okay, big box capacitor, parallel plate, okay, and you have, so now let's try to think. Suppose you have a capacitor, and when you connect a voltage, say DC volt V with the capacitor, what will happen? The capacitor will be charged. Okay. Now, once the capacitor is charged, you can, suppose you remove the input voltage V, then what will happen? The capacitor will discharge, okay, due to moisture in the air, or this will discharge. So gradually discharge means what? Gradually its charge, quantity of the charge will be decreasing, and ultimately after some time there will be no charge. So this is called the discharge of a capacitor. So charge of a capacitor means when you connect some voltage with the capacitor, capacitor will be charged. So charge will be accumulated on the capacitor. When you leave that capacitor, that charge will be decreasing and it will go ultimately zero. Now suppose you connect that capacitor with a resistance R. Okay, if the R, the value of the resistance could be very high, so if the resistance will be very high, so it will create a lot of resistance in that path, and then charge will discharge slowly. And by measuring the charge at some point time t equals to 0, and again measuring the charge at some point of time t equals to t plus something or t1, you can calculate the value of the resistance R. Okay. So how you can measure the charge? Instead of measuring the charge, you can measure the voltage. So V, so at some point of time, and after some time you can again measure the voltage. So from there you will see that voltage is decreased, and that much charge is drained through the resistance capital R, and from there you can calculate the value of the resistance R. Generally in this method R should be very very high, because if R is very high, then only the charge will dissipate slowly. Otherwise if R is very low, that means we are short circuiting it. Charge will decrease and go to zero, vanish immediately. So in this method only very high R can be measured. So here I wrote, so let's the capacitor is initially charged up to a voltage of V. So this experiment you can do in a lab also, and this was a very good experiment. We used to do it, now it is not. So we used to do it. What we used to do, we used to take a capacitor and we charge it. Then with the capacitor there is a resistance, and as a voltmeter we used to connect a PMMC galvanometer or ballistic galvanometer, and then we try to see the voltage from the deflection at time to time, and from there it is possible to calculate the high resistance. And you will see that even if you don't connect the resistance, there will be decrease in charge, because the atmosphere is there, and there is atmosphere moisture and all those things, and that will create a path through which the capacitor will discharge. So many times when it is very dry weather, we see that capacitor's charge is not decreasing rapidly, because we want to finish the experiment quickly. So what we used to do some trick. So we used to wet the clothes or the handkerchief or something, and then wrap it around the capacitor, so that capacitor get moisturized, and then the charge decreases quickly, whatever be the case. So now let's read this. Let the capacitor is initially charged up to a voltage V while the switch is kept on. Once the switch is turned off, the capacitor start to discharge. In this point, you see, when the switch is on, the capacitor keep on charging, and when the switch is turned off, the capacitor starts discharge. So how it will discharge? So it will discharge to the resistance R, which we want to measure. During the discharge process, the voltage V across the capacitor at any instant of time can be given by this equation. R will be equals to T small t by C log capital V by small v. That means t is the time between the two measurement, C is the value of the capacitor, and log is and V and small v are the voltage measured at t equals to 0 and t equals to small t. So by that way, you can calculate the R, which is very high. So if you see this point, so how the capacitance will discharge? So at t equals to 0, it is V, and at t equals to infinity, it will go to 0. And the curve it will follow, it is basically small v equals to capital V. That means the voltage at t equals to 0 into e to the power minus t by RC. It will become a RC circuit, and the capacitor will discharge to the resistance R. And if we know the values of the V at two different point of time, and if you know the value of C, which is the capacitance, you can easily calculate the value of R, which is typically very, very high. Okay. Now, this method you can employ to calculate the unknown capacitance value C also. We used to do that. So how you can calculate? The same thing, it is a RC circuit and it will discharge like this with following the curves. Now in that case, you know the R through which the capacitor is getting discharged. So once you know the R, then you know the two different voltage at two different point of time, and from there you can calculate the C. But now we are reading the measurement of resistance. That the reason we are saying this method is used to measure the high resistance. But when you read the capacitance measurement, you can see that this method can also be used to measure the capacitance value. And in lab, it is also used to measure the capacitance value. Then the value of R will be very precisely known, and we can measure the voltage at two different time. And from there, using this formula, you can easily, how this formula is coming? This formula is coming from this RC circuit, where instantaneous voltage V will be V e to the power minus t by RC. So it is a kind of first order system, and it is decaying without any input. So from this you can calculate, or you can know or measure the value of R. Also you can measure the value of C if value of R is well known. Okay, so this few sentence I want to say. So in this method, which we call that loss of charge method, is very simple in principle. Okay, but it requires the careful choice of the capacitor. We need to choose the capacitor very carefully. The capacitor C itself must have sufficient high value of its own leakage resistance. So even if you don't, that's what I was saying, even if you don't employ or don't connect any R, capital R, still the capacitance charge will leak. And so we'll assume that it is leaking with some fictitious element, which is called the leakage resistance. So whatever capacitance you take, it comes with a leakage resistance. And in this experiment, that leakage resistance, which is own leakage resistance, should be sufficiently high value. Otherwise, what will happen? Other than it is decaying through the high resistance, it will decay quickly with its own leakage resistance. So this is important to note. Okay, at least in the same range of the unknown resistance, or it is much higher than the unknown resistance. So the resistance of the voltmeter, which we are not considering here, should be also very high to know it accurately, because as we are using very high resistance to measure, the voltmeter resistance should be much higher, so that all the current pass through the R, not the much current pass through the voltmeter. So these two things, or two precautions, or two things you have to note very carefully. Okay. Oh, now the time is over. Okay, fine, no issue. So we can end here as the time is not there. So you might have other classes. So tomorrow we'll start at 9 and we'll take two classes, 9 to 11. Today we can drop here, and I expect all the students to join. So while taking Viva, I see 75 students are there, and every day around 30 students are coming, and 40 students are not coming in the class. So that is reflected in the Viva, that the students are not performing. Maybe those who are coming to class regularly, they will be performing, and those who are thinking that attending class is not required, Just simply read the slide, and everything is not stated in the slide. Many things I speak verbally, so you people are maybe missing that. So I expect all of you will join. Only 30 students, it is less than 50%, much less than 50% is not good for a class. Okay, thank you, but everything is in your hand. It is up to you. You will choose whether you want to score or not. So I should tell you that. That's what I'm telling. And still I'm telling those who are attending the class, those who are not attending, they are not hearing all those things, maybe peacefully sleeping or doing something else. Okay. Okay, thank you all of you for coming to class and attending the Viva. And you cooperated so that this Viva is completed. Maybe one more Viva I will take, that is the end SEM Viva. And that will be sufficient to grade all of you. So tomorrow we will be meeting at 9 a.m. Thank you again. Have a nice day. Thank you all.